In the chaos of combat sports, everyone knows that size does matter. But time and time again, fighters and fans are reminded that muscles alone don't win fights. Too often, inexperienced but jacked up guys believe that raw size and strength can replace skill, technique, and fight IQ.
Oh, a good quick left and right by Ali. His best blows of the night. Lyle trying to fight back, coming in with a right.
They step into the ring or the cage flexing, laughing, and underestimating their opponents, only to discover seconds later that true fighting is about so much more than how much you can bench press.
38, it's only start!
It just wasn't, probably a few things I could have sharpened up on, but take no credit away from the man. I'll be back.
When these giants finally meet the real deal, the results are nothing short of comical, humiliating, and sometimes brutally painful to watch.
He knows it. He's going after it. Body shot, raining down straight right hand.
Take the story of a cocky boxer who decided to disrespect his sparring partner before they even got started. With every gesture, every smirk, he thought size and arrogance were enough to rattle the man across from him. But just seconds later, reality hit him, literally. The sparring session turned into a harsh lesson as the smaller, more skilled fighter pieced him up with sharp shots that made the cocky guy's confidence crumble. What began as mockery quickly turned into regret, and the so-called tough guy was suddenly left embarrassed in front of everyone. Then comes the bizarre showdown between a self-proclaimed master of woo-woo martial arts and a 300-pound Russian strongman. The so-called martial artist believed his mystical movements and made-up techniques would somehow overpower brute force. He strutted in with strange confidence, trying to sell his skills as something beyond normal fighting. But once the bell rang, he was absolutely wrecked. The Russian strongman didn't just beat him, he demolished him in a way that left no doubt about what happens when fantasy meets reality. The so-called master of invisible energy crumbled under the weight of a man who was built like a tank and fought like one too. And then, perhaps one of the most embarrassing moments in combat sports history, when a guy with fake silicone muscles stepped into the spotlight. Before the fight even began, people could see something was off. His body looked cartoonish, puffed up with injections instead of hours of training. He flexed and tried to act tough, but when it came time to actually show strength, the truth was laid bare. He couldn't lift, he couldn't move, and he certainly couldn't fight. The humiliation was instant, and by the time things kicked off, he was already a laughingstock. Muscles made of plastic don't hit back, and this man became living proof of it. Another unforgettable moment came when an overconfident, almost drag-lord-looking fighter challenged a smaller opponent to a boxing match. He thought his weight, his appearance, and his bravado would be enough to intimidate the smaller man across from him. But the fight itself told a very different story. Within seconds, the smaller fighter turned the tables, landing crisp shots that shook the arrogant challenger to his core. The look of regret was written all over his face as he realized skill and timing beat flashy entrances and hollow confidence every single time. And just when you think you've seen it all, there's the shocking spectacle of a 400-pound female fighter squaring up against a much smaller opponent. At first glance, it looked like a mismatch, the kind of fight where size alone would dictate the outcome. But in a moment that had the crowd gasping, she humiliated herself by accidentally knocking herself out. One wrong move, one poorly timed action, and the fight ended before it even began. The crowd erupted, not in celebration, but in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. Ego has destroyed more fighters than punches ever could, and another arrogant bodybuilder proved this yet again. At the face-off, he laughed at his opponent, mocking him for being just an average-looking man. He even went so far as to choke his rival during the staredown, desperate to show dominance before the fight. But when the bell rang, his arrogance was exposed. The smaller, less flashy opponent didn't waste time. He dismantled the bodybuilder with precision, handing him one of the most brutal humblings you could imagine. The laughter from the face-off was long gone, replaced by the silence of defeat. The next story shows how even when a boxer seems to hold his own, overconfidence can destroy him in an instant. At first, he managed to stand tall, trading blows and proving he could stay in the fight. But the moment he got cocky, dropping his guard and underestimating his opponent, disaster struck. A single clean shot landed, and the so-called giant was put straight to sleep. The crowd shouted for him to get up, but he stayed down, learning the hard way that arrogance has no place in combat sports. One of the most dramatic examples comes from a bulky boxer who entered the ring with the clear intention of bullying his opponent. He thought youth and inexperience would be easy to exploit. With his massive frame, he believed the fight was already won before it even began. But what happened next was the complete opposite of his expectations. The teenager showed heart, speed, and skill that the giant simply couldn't match. Instead of bullying, the big man was battered, taught a painful lesson that skill can dismantle size at any age. That 19-year-old walked out with respect, while the giant walked out with nothing but bruises. In another unforgettable showdown, a massive fighter entered the cage with all the swagger in the world. The referee gave the instructions, the crowd roared, and the atmosphere was electric. But within seconds of the first exchanges, it became clear that the smaller fighter had the upper hand. Using leg kicks, sharp jabs, and constant movement, he broke down the bulky opponent piece by piece. Every time the bigger man tried to muscle forward, he was punished. The crowd erupted with each strike, watching as the giant's gas tank emptied, his confidence shattered, and his body crumbled. By the end, he was barely standing, exposed once again as another case of size without skill. Then came the towering 6'5" boxer who thought facing a Hungarian MMA fighter would be nothing more than a warm-up. He walked in like it was just another day at the office, smiling and brushing off the challenge. But from the opening exchange, he was forced into a nightmare. The MMA fighter, smaller in size but sharper in skill, tore through his defenses. The boxer tried to use his reach, but every mistake was punished. Within moments, the towering figure was curled up on the floor, the brutal wake-up call echoing louder than any punch that landed. And this is the undeniable truth. Time and again, combat sports show us that size can fill a room, but it doesn't guarantee who walks out of it victorious. Muscles, height, and weight may look intimidating, but once the bell rings, none of that matters if you don't have the technique, the discipline, and the grit to back it up. Overconfidence only fuels the downfall, and the bigger they are, the harder they fall is not just a saying. It's a reality played out again and again in the fight world. That's why we bring the heat. That's why we share these moments. Because every time a huge guy gets destroyed by a smaller MMA fighter, it reminds us that true strength comes from skill, not size. And if you're watching this, you're exactly who we build this channel for. So hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and let's keep this fight club growing. The action never stops, and the lessons never fade. Size alone will never be enough.